Aloha and welcome to This Is Now. Today marks 2 weeks since a fatal fire decimated Lahaina. Now, the death toll from the blaze is still at 115 confirmed fatalities, with 2 more victims being identified by Maui police. Meanwhile, Mayor Richard Bisson will be holding a press conference later today to discuss the efforts to account for the estimated 850 people that are still missing.
Yeah, we're going to be bringing that to you live on air and on your digital platforms at 3 this afternoon. Now, along with Mayor Bisson and the police chief, also part of the press conference is an expert in DNA identification. They will talk about the process involved in identifying remains recovered after a wildfire disaster. Now, residents who have questions can email them to community@mauicounty.gov, and they will try to get those questions answered on air at the press conference today and at future press conferences. Now, the latest confirmed deaths from the fire are 59-year-old Douglas Glogue and 45-year-old Juan De Leon, both of Lahaina. Maui police say so far they have searched all single-story residential properties in the disaster area. Search teams will now focus their efforts on multi-story homes and commercial properties. Now, Governor Josh Green joined us live on Sunrise this morning to give an update on the search efforts.
There is some hope still, not the amount of hope we would want. We know that there are going to be tragedies in the buildings that haven't yet been searched. We're at 87% of the entire impact zone has been searched, but the buildings require some peeling back of several floors, levels of the buildings. And that's the more difficult part that required some additional infrastructure and equipment.
Again, that press conference with Maui Mayor Richard Bisson is at 3 o'clock this afternoon. We'll bring it to you live on air and on your digital platforms. President Biden walked the charred remains of Lahaina yesterday and promised the community that the federal government will stand with them in the months and years ahead as the town slowly heals and rebuilds. Casey Lund has reaction to the presidential visit.
And I think it was important to try and gather some of those reactions from the president's visit, which were mixed, no matter who you talk to. Some people say he was too little too late coming to visit the disaster area. Others say they were grateful for him coming here, trying to comfort people. And we know that was a big part of what he was trying to do. But it was also to take in some of this damage. And you can see so much of it around us here as we point Mackay. And again, we don't want to overshare some of these images because they are difficult to see. But as we also know, there are some real areas where things are improving, or at least getting better for the people that are still calling Lahaina home, and that is the Safeway, this Shell gas station that is still open, being operated purely by generator power. And up the hill from me is Lahaina Intermediate School, and that's where a woman I talked to yesterday out in Wailuku, she was collecting donations for fire victims. Even though she's not sure about what she's going to do for work, I want to play a little bit about what she had to say. What's your plan for the immediate future?
Well, my main concern right now is praying for everybody out there and hoping that there's not as much kids that everybody's saying there is, because I love my kids out there and they mean a lot to me. And I just want everybody to know that I can be me, but I love my kids and I just want everybody to be safe.
Are all your kids still there? Yeah, and
I don't know yet. We're still waiting to see what they find and what they're letting us know. So I'm hearing it's a lot, but I just pray that, all my fellow coworkers are safe, but just the kid, that's what worries me a lot.
Yeah, and that is the situation for so many people here in Lahaina and so many people in Maui that may not have lived in Lahaina but worked at a business here, relied on this community. And so she told me later that her interpretation of the president's visit was positive, but she said, we want to keep him to task, and that is what so many people have been telling me. Actions speak louder than words, Mr. President. They want to make sure the federal government not only continues but bolsters its support of this area and this island as it prepares to heal, and that is going to be a long and unimaginable journey. But the president himself said if anywhere can pull that off, it's Maui, it's Hawaii.
Thank you so much for that report, Casey. Well, yesterday, during President Biden's tour of the fire-ravaged Lahaina, he took a moment and gave a speech for the media. Here's some of what he said.
My administration has been in constant contact with the governor and congressional delegation and local leaders. As soon as I got the governor's request, I signed the major disaster declaration that mobilized the whole of government response, which means whatever you need, you're going to get. We're focused on what's next. That's rebuilding long term, rebuilding for long term, and doing it together to help get us back on our feet, to rebuild the way we want to rebuild, by making sure your voices are heard, by respecting your traditions, by understanding the deep history and meaning of this sacred ground, and establishing your community not to change its character, but reestablish it.
Later in the day, he also spoke with survivors inside a community center to give them some hope as they look toward the future of Lahaina. Here's some of that.
Only thing worse than losing someone is not sure whether you've lost someone. Not sure whether. My heart goes out to you, Jill and I. It aches for you, those of you who are trying to determine whether or not the person who is missing and unaccounted for reasons that are devastating. What I've observed in my short time here today is the courage, the community, the sense of togetherness you have. It's not an ordinary community. It's a community based on faith in one another.
And while there is hope for the future, there are still more and more stories being uncovered about the heartbreak and loss the day of the fires. Lilia Luciano spoke with one mother who tried desperately to save her son.
On what should have been Guillermo Fuentes' 15th birthday, friends and family honored his life at the same park where he learned to walk as a baby.
He had a very kind heart. A very good heart.
The teen was home alone, enjoying the last day of summer vacation, when flames tore through the town of Lahaina.
We saw the strong smoke in the air.
Fuentes' adoptive mom, Luz Vargas, who runs a local cleaning service, was working 5 miles away. As soon as they learned the fire was ravaging the area, she and her husband Andres jumped in the car and raced toward their burning neighborhood. With traffic at a standstill, she took off running.
I was told, don't go, but I responded, my son.
At one point, Vargas says she ran into a police barricade.
I threw myself on the floor. I lifted my hands up and I begged God.
After running past the officers, she says a man on a motorcycle took her to the front line of the fire, where a team of first responders assured her the area had been cleared.
I was told there's nobody there now. Have faith that your son got out.
2 days later, the family finally made it to the devastated home.
When we arrived, everything had been consumed by the fire. But when I got to his bedroom, he was there, lying and hugging my dog. But he was not as I expected, in ashes. God maintained him like this, so we knew it was him.
Vargas's husband Andres and their son Josue wrapped Calleros' remains in a tarp and carried his body half a mile to a police station.
When I get home at night, I'm flooded with the memories. I try to be strong.
Now the family is left grieving not only the life lost, but what could have been.
I wish I could have made more memories with him. He was too young. If we still had time, I know he would have been a very, very, very good man.
Meanwhile, President Biden named FEMA Regional Administrator Bob Fenton the Chief Federal Response Coordinator. He'll be in charge of the federal government's long-term recovery efforts on Maui.
He's one of the nation's most experienced disaster response and recovery experts in America. And I'm directing him to make sure the community has everything the federal government can offer to heal and to rebuild as fast as possible.
Last year, Fenton led the White House's response to the Mpox outbreak. King Kekaulike School in upcountry Maui began a phased reopening with school staff returning to campus yesterday. Students will be welcome to school starting tomorrow. Meantime, families and staff from closed schools in Lahaina can call the DOE's new hotline at 808-727-6880 for answers to any school-related questions. The hotline is specifically for those who attended Kamehameha III Elementary, Princess Nahi'enaena Elementary, Lahaina Intermediate, and Lahaina Luna High. Service is open Monday to Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Again, the number is 808-727-6880. Once the search of the disaster zone is complete, comes the next step of cleaning up the entire town. Mark Carpenter reports on the massive initiative that'll take a lot of collaboration.
You can't just get heavy equipment in and start digging stuff up. You need to assess the hazardous material, figure out what your plan is for each part of the hazardous material picture, and then go about doing it.
Senator Brian Schatz emphasizing the Lahaina fire's widespread and years-long impact. An unprecedented disaster will also require an extraordinary cleanup. Schatz says it will likely be up to FEMA, the EPA, and Army Corps of Engineers to come up with a disposal plan. And the hazards are immense.
Given the age of the town, you always have the usual suspects of asbestos, lead, any sort of heavy metals, PCBs. Those are just common in construction across the past 100 years. And those would be things that I'd be concerned about.
Anthony Nelson is a property restoration expert with 2 decades in the industry. He helped restore the Marco Polo building after its fire in 2017 and says rebuilding an entire town will be a massive feat.
It took us 2 years to get that building to a condition to where it could be rebuilt. To assume that it's going to take any less than that to get Lahaina to a place to where structures can be built and it's free of any known and recognized hazards, I think that's conservative at best.
In addition to the physical debris, there are a number of health risk factors, including long-term respiratory illnesses, similar to what emergency responders and relief workers experienced following the September 11th attacks.
I think the 9/11 lesson is an important one. We have to make sure that we take care of our first responders who went in there without regard for their own safety and who continue to work the perimeter of Lahaina town.
Nelson extends that concern for those assisting with relief efforts near the impact zone.
I would just encourage them, please, please, please wear respiratory protection, even if it's just an N95 dust mask that you can find. Something's better than nothing. And we're going to need you for a long time to rebuild these communities. So don't do anything that jeopardizes your health today.
Mark Carpenter, Hawaii News Now.
And we will continue to provide the latest updates out of Maui and the devastating wildfires. Be sure to stick with Hawaii News Now on air and online. Now we want to look to some other news, including a brush fire out of West Oahu. The fire that sparked Monday afternoon around 12:30 forced evacuations near the Kaena Point Trail. Lifeguards used jet skis to help bring 6 hikers back to Yokohama Bay. Keawaula Park was also evacuated. About 20 acres were burned.
We saw the brush fire spread rapidly. The winds were pretty high today. And so from the size of a small brush fire, maybe the size of a small house, it escalated to the size of a football field in minutes. So it was scary.
It took crews 3 hours to get the fire under control, and the scene was set to be reassessed this morning to see if more airdrops were needed. No injuries were reported. It's not yet known what caused the fire.
Police are investigating a head-on collision in Wahiawa that killed a 20-year-old motorcyclist yesterday. They say speed appears to be a factor. Police say the motorcyclist was traveling northbound on Kaukonahua Road when he lost control and dropped the motorcycle traveling into the southbound lane. As a result, the motorcyclist was then struck by another vehicle. He was taken to the hospital in critical condition, but later died. He was not wearing a helmet at the time of the collision. The 21-year-old female passenger of the other vehicle was taken to the hospital in serious condition. Police are looking for 2 suspects after 2 women were robbed in Waikiki yesterday morning. They say at around 3:52 a.m., the suspects punched one of the victims, stole some of their property, and fled. One of the suspects appeared to have a firearm.
The Honolulu District Courthouse is back open today. An assessment determined the building is safe after a contractor inadvertently caused some structural damage last week. If you have a hearing scheduled for today and want information about how the schedule was impacted, head to our website, hawaiinewsnow.com.
Several of the 19 people who were indicted in Georgia for allegedly trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election have turned themselves in.
But the biggest name on the alleged list of co-conspirators will be heading to the Fulton County Jail on Thursday. Natalie Brand is in Washington with more.
Attorney John Eastman, one of the alleged co-conspirators accused of trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election in Georgia, was processed at the Fulton County Jail Tuesday and released.
I am confident that when the law is faithfully applied in this proceeding, all of my co-defendants and I will be fully vindicated.
Former President Donald Trump says he will turn himself in on Thursday. He posted on social media that he's going to be arrested for, quote, making a perfect call, referring to the phone call he had with Georgia's Secretary of State urging him to find votes. Trump is facing 13 felony counts, including a RICO charge of conspiring with 18 others to overturn the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. Trump's lawyers agreed to a $200,000 cash bond to be released. He will not be allowed to discuss the case with co-defendants except through his attorneys. And as part of the agreement, he is also banned from intimidating witnesses, including on social media.
Nominating someone who's out on bail in 4 jurisdictions is not a winning formula.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is slamming Trump for his decision to skip the first presidential primary debate Wednesday. But these 8 candidates will be on the stage, hoping to set themselves apart from the rest of the field.
2024 is our moment of choosing. We are not going to get a mulligan on this one.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is Trump's closest competitor in the latest CBS News poll, but he trails Trump by more than 40 points among Republicans surveyed. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Nissan is recalling more than 236,000 Sentras because of potential steering control issues. The recall covers model years 2020 through 2022. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the front suspension tie rods can bend or break, which could cause drivers to lose control of steering and crash. Owners of the impacted cars can go to their dealer for a free repair. Trader Joe's has announced another big recall. This time, they're recalling multigrain crackers with sunflower and flax seeds that may contain bits of metal. Affected crackers have a best if used by date between March 1st and March 5th of 2024. All right, let's take a live look outside. This is towards Daniel K. Inouye Airport. You can see a bounce to the camera that shows that the trade winds are in our forecast. To see what else there is in store, let's send it over to our friend, Guy Hagi.
Aloha on this Tuesday. Things are very quiet in the central and east Pacific. No cyclones expected anytime soon. So things are mellowing out. However, it is going to be a little bit windy for the next several days. As far as rainfall, will be limited in that. Just a few windward and Mauka showers for a handful of spots, mainly this morning. Fewer showers by the middle of the day. And that's going to be the weather pattern for the next several days. Breezy trade winds almost everywhere, except, of course, for the Kona side of Hawaii Island. They'll have light winds with afternoon clouds and a few spotty showers. Otherwise, get ready for a beautiful Tuesday. We'll start out a little damp for a handful of windward spots only, and even those showers won't amount to very much. And then by the middle of the day, we'll have drier conditions with those breezy winds. Humidity levels will be on the low side. So there will be an elevated fire threat. Brush fires could pop up again because things will be very dry for leeward sides. Also popping up, east swell from the former Hurricane Hillary. That should be getting bigger today at 5 to 7 feet and wrapping into the South Shore at 4 to 6. So we've got a long stretch of breezy trading weather. The weather's not going to change in any significant way anytime soon. A few more windward and Mocha showers today, but other than that, we'll see lots of leeward sunshine. High temperatures approaching 90 every single day.
In parts of Southern California, a huge cleanup effort is underway following the impacts of Tropical Storm Hillary. Now, Michael Spencer reports from Long Beach, California, and shows us some of the damage it left behind.
This road in Palm Springs, California is one of several that remain closed Tuesday after Tropical Storm Hillary pounded the desert community with nearly as much rain in one day as it normally gets in a year. Nearby in Cathedral City, emergency crews used bulldozers to rescue residents trapped in 5 feet of mud. Officials say it felt more like quicksand.
You got a wall of water mixed with sand and mud, so trying to walk through it is different than just mud or just sand.
With the mud knee-deep, residents have now begun the long process of digging out and cleaning up.
In a matter of 3 minutes, my whole bottom floor was filled up with water to waist level.
Ronald Mendiola said his family of 5 was stranded on their roof as debris rushed through Cathedral City.
We did make it to safety by a Good Samaritan coming and actually passing by and picking us up.
Here in Long Beach Harbor, some parts of the marina suffered damage and storm debris is piling up. The storm also caused a power outage to White Memorial Hospital in Los Angeles. The generators immediately kicked in on Monday, but then failed early Tuesday.
So we immediately moved the critical patients to adjacent buildings, and we also moved patients that we could not accommodate that are critical to outlying hospitals around us here in the area.
Death Valley National Park remains closed after the storm delivered a year's worth of rain in one day. An estimated 400 residents, visitors, and employees are sheltering in place until the roads are passable again. Michael Spencer, CBS News, Long Beach, California.
These weather events.
A lot going on. There really is a lot going on. We want to go ahead and remind you of the press conference that is happening later today. That will be happening at 3 o'clock with Maui Mayor Richard Bisson alongside Maui Police Chief John Pelletier, as well as the representative from the FBI and the DNA specialist as well. And we know there are still so many questions out there swirling, and the email right there, you can email your questions to community@mauicounty.gov. They're going to do their best to answer as many questions as possible.
Yeah, and we know the focus of this press conference is going to be their efforts to account for the estimated 850 people that are still missing. The death toll at this time is 115 confirmed fatalities, and Governor Josh Green said they searched 87% of the disaster zone so far. So there are a lot of questions about these people who are still missing.
And we're going to be doing our very best to stay on top of all of that and bring you the very latest. Again, 3 o'clock on your HNN digital platforms, as well as our 3 stations on air. We want to end today with some symbols of hope. We've heard so many stories of hope and the path forward for the people of Lahaina. And we want to go ahead and play this video for you now that encapsulates some of that. Thank you all so much for watching.
Go.